Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Dialogue with the Youth So on Gunjur Online TV. Today is Friday, 30th of July, 2021. The time in the United Kingdom is just 8 o'clock. The time in the Gambia should be about 16 or 7 o'clock, and Eastern time probably 5 o'clock, or sorry, maybe 2 o'clock. And once again, welcome to all of you, wherever you are in the world. Today, we have a special guest, and our topic to discuss is we're going to have a dialogue, and the question that we are asking is, those things fall apart in the Gambia? And my guest today, I don't need any introduction, but, really we have to say, not pressing in, but to say what we know about our guest, who is with us today from the Gambia. And he is nobody but our own Njie, known as my own brother. And the consistency of this young man, is beyond belief. The energy and that he expands for the good, for common good of the Gambia is beyond belief. From environment, economics, everywhere. Sometimes I keep wondering what books this man read. Do you have any time for yourself other than reading all those areas? The sweep of his erudition is limitless. And societies are formed, for in hero worshiping, and we have to worship our heroes. Maybe he will not want me to say this, but Gambia can only go forward. A society can only go forward if that society is predicated on, hero worshiping. There are people who are giving their time to society for the general good of everybody, and the uncommon, wisdom that he expends all over the place. It is just have to be accepted and recognized. And I will take this chance to recognize Nyang's role in the fight for common good in the Gambia, for progress, for unity. Once again, welcome to Dialogue with the Youth So on Gunjur Online, my brother Njie. Thank you.
You're most welcome, and thanks for having me on board.
Yeah, thank you, brother. And before we go, I went through your post and your videos and all over the place. Up to maybe May of this year. But one thing that stand out, and I was really emotional, is about the birthday message you sent to Papa Njie, or Mr. P. Njie, or Jaja Aram Faha Njie. And fantastic, because these people, we have to bring the history that we can connect ourselves and bridge yesterday and today. Maybe, and because you use indifference. The papers that I went through, I think I saw indifference about nearly 15 or 20 times. That word indifference, I think we are going to come to that. But this special relationship between this giant of the Gambia and the president, Sadao Jawara, because sometimes people saying this is Peri Jawara and all those, they didn't know the background. So I want you to give us, dignify us with the historical perspective of the special relationship between these two giants, from the Njies and the Jawaras, so that the young people can understand. Not only young people, but there's some people who are all enough, but they don't understand. I want you to shed some light for me on this. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Njie.
Well, good evening, viewers, wherever you are. Welcome, and it's a pleasure coming onto this show and sharing whatever little we have with society. Politics, for what it is today in the Gambia, has shown a rivalry that's not productive, nor is it healthy for social cohesion. The way we play politics today, it has made Gambia to be a divided country that share the same social fabric. If we rewind back to the 60s, Sadao Jawara and Alhaji Papa Njie, otherwise known as P.O. Njie, went to the same Quranic school, went to the same Mohammedan school, and later boys' high school. They were childhood friends, grew up together, and Jawara ended up going to Achimota and Scotland, Edinburgh, came back as a vet, and their friendship still, persisted. It went on. Then Jawara got into politics. When Jawara got into politics, Njie's family was also in politics by way of Per Sar Njie, PS Njie. So this rivalry between PPP and UDP, Njie was caught at the crossroads. And when he was at the crossroads, he chose family over politics, meaning he continued voting for United Party, and that is PS Njie's party, and still he continued being Sadauda Jawara's very good friend. So the reason why that happened, there was political maturity, there was understanding, and that made the relationship worthwhile. Can you hear me?
Sorry, and I'm just saying, when you receive, you are mostly with your granddad, and a call came, and you tell us about that call, so that we can know this relationship between these two people, to the extent that they remember each other's, birthdays and share messages through phones and many other invitations, even when he was at the State House, the president. Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah. Well, P.O. Njie has been invited to many functions or state functions, but these two people remembered each other's birthday, and it was always easier for the president to call P.O. than P.O. to call him. And I can fully remember not long ago, before he passed, at their old age, former President Jawara making a call to his friend, wishing him a happy birthday. And it shows who these people were, and it shows what friendship meant to them, and it showed what being humans were. And unfortunately, in our times, that has changed, because friendship is basically based on interest. Friendship is based on influence. That is not friendship. These people were friends, and for friends' sake, because when they were friends, they never knew President Jawara would someday become a president, but yet still being a president didn't change the way they related and the way they cared for each other.
Yeah, so that's so important, and one of the moral lessons, and I think you can deduce a lot of moral lessons from this. The whole purpose is for young people to know, to have divergent views, and to be in a different political party and all those things, and different tribes and all. That doesn't mean we should fight. We have much in common, other than the artificial divisions, and Nyang, but I'm just we thought maybe we are educated, we have these fancy degrees, we have all these developments here and there, we are aware, we are exposed, and all those things. Typical example is the Gambian diaspora, who are doing fantastic work, but the social media is so toxic. Can we learn from these people, who are so, the different tribes, even though Jawara, is a Bajurian, and culturally he's there, but but they maintain this relationship, despite the political difference between Per and Jawara. That's only politics, but the normal relationships and life goes on, and the country was a heaven for us. The toxicity now we are having wasn't there at all in this magnitude.
Well, the Gambian in 2021 is more educated than the Gambian in 1960-65 Gambia. Is more traveled than the Gambian in 1965. But fortunately, the Gambian in 1965 had core moral values that were solid relative to the Gambian today. Why? Materialism and quick fix for instant success. You see, our wants and need for material possession and our wants and need for societal influence has made us discount our moral equivalent, meaning whatever it takes to be quote unquote successful in the eyes of the world, people will do. That's why people do the dogo that we see today. That's why people put others in trouble just to achieve. And that's why people will step on anyone's toes to get to where they want. This is what brought us to where we are. That's why our, political environment is very toxic, and that's why our political environment is detrimental to the collective good's interest. So we, the Gambians who are here today, we need to look back and ask ourselves, what did our elders of the past have that we didn't have today? And we will understand is that we are more morally bankrupt today than ever in the history of this nation. So we need to have an introspective look at self, look inward, and try to see how best we can fix our country by first fixing our attitudes. We cannot have a better Gambia without having a better Gambian. And the only way we can have a better Gambian is for us to go back and see where we have faltered. And we will see that we have faltered on our values, societal values to be precise.
Yeah, that's I hope young people, all over the place, to start digging, and learn from, because, I know many people in the Gambia here living, where either young people when Gambia was coming, or they born in Gambia's era, and they seems to don't know anything, and normally our people, we are not keen to dig into our history, but we can learn a lot from this. When I saw this, I was really emotional, because I only know Pale Njie. I didn't know the P on Njie is there, because Pale, was the towering figure in the Gambian politics and everything about Gambia, but anybody who is only seeing Jawara and Pale and didn't know this other side, didn't do the justice to that relationship, unless these relationships come in, and I think the Njie and the Gambia and the Jawaras are really blessed. So people like you digging into history, and linking, because we have to bridge, our yesterday, so that we can have, a clear pathway where we are going. Because if not, we will be wallowing within, contemporary issues, without linking them to. So if we have all these degrees, and if we have all this awareness, and we are insulting, and we are not creating a marketplace of ideas where we can learn from each other, then the people in 1965 and 1966 or prior are better than you, are really, really better than you, and you are not doing justice of Gambia in terms of Gambia's progress, in terms of Gambia's development. Mr. Nyang, thank you for that historical tour de force. But what we are going to do now, I'm going to ask you about, about the headline that is, coming from Gambia. That's love or infatuation. That's, you wrote about the imminent fall of the proposed MPP and APRC nuptial. Is this a threat to our national security? And because is it because Barrow don't know what he is going, or is he desperate? Is he that desperate to think that having this infatuation, if I am right, with APRC will be good for the Gambia, will be good for the country? And if that's the way to do reconciliation, as some people are asking.
Yes, you're quite right. And we first need to understand one thing, that Yahya Jammeh is an existential threat to the survival of the nation. And the only way we can avert that threat is to make sure we put him where he belongs. And he belongs in the relic, the past. He belongs. He cannot be part of the Gambia moving forward. And what we can do to make sure that doesn't happen, he be taken completely out of the Gambian body politic. What does that mean? His image. I want to see APRC as a party continue to exist. I don't have a problem with it. But I have every problem seeing the party being associated with an instrument of repression in the name of Yahya Jammeh. We need to do something to make sure that doesn't exist going forward. So when I heard that NPP is courting APRC, I was disturbed. I was disturbed for the simple fact that the very president we all rallied behind, Adama Barrow, to not only usher in change, but to bring an end to brutality in Gambia, has no moral equivalent to understand that associating with the people that aided and abetted the subjugation of the rights of Gambian for far too long, I was worried. And what he is doing, if it's true that his party wants to coalesce with APRC, then he has really railroaded Gambians and he has thrown us under the bus. Because the very reason we voted him in was not because we liked him. It was a protest vote against President Janneh, and that is to be understood by him and the people that surrounds him. If not, they have done a flagrant abuse to the very Gambians that showed them hospitality and opened our hearts to make sure he became president in order to help us rebuild a nation that has been on the brink, a nation that has suffered, a nation that wanted to do better and have a new day.
Thank you, Nyang. But you said, well, this code clearly explained the proposed union of the two groups whose interests are on parallel lanes with an unknown port of call. And you think this infatuation, or this so-called, marriage or nuptial, will not go ahead. It cannot just materialize in future, or there's no future in this relationship.
Well, if you understand the APRC, they're not trying to help Barrow because they want to come to power. They're trying to help Barrow because they want issues surrounding Yahya Jammeh to either be settled, neutralized, or put in the trash and never to be discussed again, i.e., his return to come home without any sanction or anything happening to him. And that is beyond Barrow. Barrow doesn't own the Gambia, and Barrow doesn't own Gambians, and Barrow is not at liberty to personally give Yahya Jammeh what Yahya Jammeh wants. That's up to the people of the Gambia and the laws of the Gambia. Yahya Jammeh has the right to come home with or without President Barrow because he's a bona fide citizen of this country. I cannot stop him. You cannot stop him. So therefore, he need not negotiate his return because he has a God-given right to come home. So all he has to do is get into a flight and land safely into the country. But let it be known to him that when he lands in the country, he is just the next citizen, albeit he was once a president. The law of this country will have to deal with him for any crimes perceived to have been committed or any crimes that are known for that he has committed in the past. So there is no if, but, or maybe, and there is nothing President Barrow can do to change that. This country is not a monarchy. It's not owned by the president. It's owned by the sovereign people. And the sovereign people have a guiding principle called a constitution. So whatever Yahya Jammeh is going to do, or whoever wants to please Yahya Jammeh, it has to be within the confines of our constitutional provisions.
Thank you, Nyang. Once again, welcome to Dialogue with the Youth. So our guest is Mr. Njie, an economist, environmentalist. You can count and count and count, who is here to dignify us with his presence, even though with his tight schedule, he's just from work now, and he jumps on this, that's really, really much appreciated from our side. And we have my own brother, YOUTHS Scattred Janneh, say, welcome, bro. This is very important topic. Lamin Manjang, Salam Alaikum. Good evening, brothers. Thanks for staging another very interesting episode. Khadija said, a great start to such an important discussion, EB. And Nyang, this discussion, I'm learning from it. It is important for every single Gambian, not just youth. And this is really something one we have to discuss, Nyang. But we see prominent and respected people who are coming. I have no problem people going to APRC, and say all kind of stuff, or joining Barrow from APRC, not at all, as far as they are allowed to operate. And I think APRC is very lucky to be in the Gambia, where we just they're free, to do whatever they are doing now, because on Jammeh's time nobody there. nobody there against Jammeh to protest, to say all the things, to undermine the TRRC. And now we're seeing some of the victims, like Lam Tombong Tamba, and I saw your piece, and this is so much a fantastic piece full of wisdom and advice to him, and candid discussion, that he is coming and saying, forget about whatever Jammeh do, he does this and this and this, but Njie, that's really, that's definitely, it's not expected for somebody like, without bringing the context to it. In Tombong just said, forget about, Jammeh did good things, he did this and all those things, So I heard some other people who said, leadership come with people dying and all those things, but I'm not going to name those ones. We don't have to dignify those things with even calling their name. Tell us, about, people like Lam Tombong's, what he said, and what do you respond to him? The implication of that for peace and reconciliation.
Well, I think there are many Lang Tombongs in Gambia, so I will not personalize it to him.
Yes.
But there are many people who are in denial of the gruesome past that has happened to many a Gambian. But all I'm going to say, and all I have to say, is Yahya Jammeh was not good for the Gambia. He cannot be good for the Gambia, and he will never be good for the Gambia. Why? Yahya Jammeh toppled a government that was democratically elected, albeit that Gambians were not happy at the tail end of Jawara's regime in terms of corruption and other vices that were happening in the country, especially on opportunities, social opportunities. But anyway, with all that, Gambians accepted Jammeh and his cohorts and decided that let us move on. Well, we moved on, but moving on was a treacherous journey. And in that journey, people with a myopic eye will believe that there is development because there were schools, hospitals, and airport, universities, whatever that were built. But what many Gambians fail to understand, development is not about brick and mortar. Development is about the enhancement of the life and livelihood of the individual, i.e., first, having guaranteed rights to self-expression and the way you want to determine your future as an individual. Well, Jammeh copped those rights from us. Another right that we have, and we need to accept that, is that, another right that we had, and it need to be accepted, was that the way and manner in which things happen in this country, we had Gambians that were missing, we had Gambians that were murdered. And what we need to understand and what we need to know, one life lost is one too many. And we have the Data Hideras, the Solo Sandengs, the NIA, Daba Marina, etc., etc. Therefore, I don't care whether Yahya Jammeh were to pave Gambian roads with gold, I will still hold him accountable, and I cannot see his rule as a positive rule for the greater good's interest because he has murdered one of mine, a Gambian. So one Gambian dead in terms of being killed unjustifiably has put a stain on his legacy. And therefore, we cannot see him as a statesman. We cannot see him as someone who had our interest, because you cannot have our interest and still brutalize us to the point of killing us and having enforced disappearances.
Yes, thank you so much, Nyang. That is clear enough because we as Gambian, as Bob Dawn says, every man's death diminishes me because I'm part of mankind. Never sent to know for whom the bell toll, it toll for thee. If one Gambian died because of Yahya Jammeh's brutality, and that nullify all of the developments. More than we have a lot of Gambians died, a lot of Gambians tortured, a lot of Gambians raped, and still you wonder why on earth we should even discuss about Yahya Jammeh. But the bravado and the nonchalant attitude of APRC, that's your word. That is, it didn't come out of blue, Mr. Njie. Because at the beginning, when we newly came in 2016, APRC was just as quiet as a mouse. For some reason, because of the political expediency and party politicking and all those things, they become very, very, very much arrogant and start attacking the TRRC. In fact, you can say something about the TRRC and their report that is now forwarded. And I see Uncle Sidi Sane was even casting doubt whether this report will be honored, at any time. So, and this has to come the emboldening of from APRC and attacking institutions that are act of parliament, like the TRRC, the Janneh commissions, and all those things. This has to come from somewhere, Mr. Njie.
Well, I think we need to understand that our situation is very unfortunate. Our political issues have social undertones. Our political climate is bankrolled by social malfunctions. APRC as a party, I am glad we didn't do the same thing that Yahya Jammeh did to PPP. I support the democratization of our political space, and I support democratic plurality. That's what I want to see. The more, the merrier. So therefore, I want them to stay. But we have to understand that a significant chunk of APRC are not in for the politicking. They're in for the social reconfiguration of issues. What do I mean by social reconfiguration? We know, and let people not be offended by what I'm saying, because it had to be said, that unfortunately, politics in Gambia is normally not based on issues, but mostly on sentiments that are ethnic driven. We know that the APRC constitute, their support base constitute predominantly of a minority grouping in the Gambia. Unfortunately, I don't like to say this, but it's a fact. And that minority grouping, to a point, whether it was notional or not, they felt like they've enjoyed, a significant boost and ride in this country. You go into the security services, they made up the highest echelons of the security structure at the time. So now they have lost this power, and they have lost their favorite son. So therefore, whatever the state is trying to do, it will not be something good or endorsed by them. That's number one. And number two, they want not to settle scores, but they want to see how best they can bring back what was. Well, what was will never come back, number one. Number two, Gambia needs to move on, and it needs to move on as an entity of Gambians, not a subgrouping of groups and people, be it social or ethnic. So therefore, if what I expected from Barrow, and this is the failure of Barrow, he has failed to bring our diverse peoples together after the 20-odd years of brutality. And yet today, we are still suffering in terms of the ethnic divide. We are suffering in terms of the socio-economic divide, because there are Gambians today that development has gone on a wayside, and they're not going to see development because of where they live and where they're from. So what we needed was a president who can embrace our nationality, who can embrace, a social fabric that has been worn and torn by Jammeh, and see how best he can stitch the shredded or, the parts of our social fabric that has been torn, and to see how he can bring the diverse peoples of this country together. But I think we are more polarized today than we were in 2016. And this is a failure of leadership on the part of the president. And I will call him out, and I will continue to call him, because he has failed on why we elected him as a president. We never wanted roads. We never wanted bridges for bringing him in 2016 and having a coalition. We wanted institutional reforms, a new constitution, and healing of our horrendous past. And on this scorecard, President Barrow has failed woefully, and not only failed woefully, he is indifferent to why we brought him in office.
Indifference. Mr. Njie, and things fall apart. Tell me whether you agree or not, because I saw you where you said, Mr. President, your bragging rights should have been the following: new constitution to usher in a new Gambia, a restitution for victims of 22 years of dictatorship, bringing to book the looters, that's contractors, public servants, and politicians who plundered our commonwealth, comprehensive civil service and security sector reform, uniting a divided nation by healing the wounds, administering a free and fair election without your participation. Unfortunately, none of this is achieved. And the Afro barometer that just came just recently says 6 in 10 Gambian, that's 61%, said the overall level of corruption in the country increased somewhat or a lot during the past year, almost double the proportion recorded in 2018. That was about 32%. 3-4, that's 76% of citizens said the government is not doing a good job of fighting corruption, a 39% point increase compared to 2018, which was 37%. More than 4 in 10 Gambians says most or all officials in the police, that's 48%, and the president's office, 42%, are corrupt. Public perception of corruption among key public officials increased sharply, except with regard to religious leaders. And more respondents, you can go on and go on and go on. Most definitely, the transitional agendas has been derailed, prostituted, and definitely things fall apart. Do you agree? And give me your reasons.
Well, things have fallen apart and the center cannot hold. Chaos and pandemonium has become the order of the day. That must be accepted and agreed. During Yahya Jammeh's days, corruption was centralized, meaning Yahya Jammeh was the chief architect of corruption, and everybody basically worked to achieve his ends. And the people that attempted corruption were penalized by Jammeh, meaning I can do what I want, but you guys can't do what you want. But unfortunately, 2016 to date, corruption has been decentralized. It's free for all. And that's why we have seen the floodgates of what's happening in this country. What we need to understand is that corruption is endemic in the Gambia. What we need to understand, corruption has become a way of life for public servants. What we need to understand, our public servants are not only plundering our natural resources and our financial resources by engaging in illicit corrupt practices, but their nature of them being corrupt is becoming a detriment to the existence of the Gambian. Why? Many a Gambian will die in a hospital because of ill-equipped hospital, because of lack of oxygen, for example. Child mortality is a problem. Maternal mortality is a problem. You go to our education sector, our education results are poor. Kids are being dropped out of school. Kids are becoming functional illiterates, meaning they've gone through school, but school hasn't gone through them. And unfortunately, it's society that suffers. Drug use has gone up. Prostitution to a point has gone up. And these are the telltale signs of a corrupt society. And this is making Gambia move more towards a verge of becoming a banana republic, close to being a failed state. But why is this so? It is so because the culture of corruption has been institutionalized in our public administration.
Thank you, Nyang. Once again, greetings to Baba Balajo, Noah Sise, Professor says, great program, well done. And Kisima Jawara says, Juara says, voice of the voiceless. And Khalifa Toure, greetings to all of you. Please share this program so that this can reach to our people all over the world. So, because some of the issues we are discussing here are central to the development of our country. And Mr. Njie, you succinctly, put your hands on the finger and you asking the Gambians, are we safer as individuals and country? And are we poorer in terms of purchasing power? Is corruption in the increase? Is the government accountable to the citizen? Is our health system working? Is our education system working? Are youths of this country adequately catered for in terms of opportunities and resources? Is our current president reliable per the promises and pledges he made to the government? Is our president considerate to the plight of the nation? Does the president have the leadership acumen to move the country? Those we as Gambians deserve better than what has been dished out to us. These are some of the questions, they're fundamental because they are what we need to answer and have that country right. There's nowhere else, if we can have these things right, the country will be right. But not only that, the poor performance of coming and addressing the nation and talking about plunging of cabas and talking about putting safra or some of these jujus on the head of dead people. These are performances that are so degenerative to the extent that we don't expect our leader, no matter how low it is. But day before yesterday's performance in terms of we saw tribes coming, dividing us into tribal lines and all those things. But we don't have to blame Barrow for that only, but we have to blame ourselves for somebody that we empowered. We gave all the resources. He was a nobody in last 4 years, and now he is somebody, and he can come and divide us from tribal lines, because I am saying, when you saw my surname, and just judge me because of my surname as Janneh, you left about 99% of who I am. You don't know anything, and you are wrong. So, but we allow that. So, do anybody in the Gambia, other than selfishness, based on this judgment, should allow Barrow to rule us next 4 years, from December, for next 4 or 5 years?
Well, personally, I have nothing against the individual Adama Barrow. Yes. Why? I don't know him well, number one. Number two, I'm indifferent to his survival because he is indifferent to mine. I don't need him, the individual Adama Barrow. But the person who chooses to rule us, His Excellency President Adama Barrow, I have something substantive against him because I personally believe he cannot deliver us from the misery we find ourselves, number one. Number two, his understanding and appreciation of our political and socio-economic issues are too sophisticated for his comprehension. He cannot fix this country. And the sooner he accepts that, he will be doing a favor to the Gambian. And for those who want to support him blindly, I ask, do you have conscience and love for country? If you have conscience and love for country, there and then you will know that Adama Barrow is not the Messiah who can save this country, and therefore we need to give him a befitting package and give him a rousing ovation, even though not much has been done, just to show gratitude that he was the bridge that we had to cross to go past Jammeh. But Gambia needs serious leaders, functional leaders, competent leaders to make sure we become a country that is counted in the League of Nations as not only a country that can be prosperous, but a country that can be a beacon of hope in the environment we find ourselves called West Africa.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Lamin Manjang, my own friend, says, with a failed coalition and the president, Gambia is in a very sad and precarious situation. No key instructions that is pertaining to our life, improvement in adequate catered for, and Sirifo Sanyang will say, you are right, Njie, and on your points, I fully agree with you 100%. Mr. Njie, we have cascading of drugs, pouring down into that country. The crime is shooting up. There's a link there. Hopefully you can tell us about that link. And I think now there've been a lot of talk about Gorgimbur coming, like a messiah that's going to save it. But that should be a sad thing. If we have a TRRC, a public institution, that is ex-cons, and they somebody who is vastly mentioned, and he was suspended. It's just beyond belief that we think he can come in. But that shows our understanding of security, what our problems is, what our priorities is. Do you think there's cartels that are in control of that country? And
Well,
do you think? Yes, go ahead.
before I answer that, I want to register my dissatisfaction on the supplementary appropriation bill that has been debated in the parliament these past few days, to
Yes.
see a provision of $3 or whatever million is to be paid as honorarium to the Drug Law Enforcement Agency. That in itself is criminal. Why is it criminal? The taxpayer must not pay an honorarium to people for drugs that they have seized. I can understand that if we have seized drugs, but alongside we seize assets, properties, cars of these known drug dealers, and we happen to sell them, that is proceeds of illicit gain. Part of those proceeds we can give as honorarium to reward the people who have done it. But we cannot take from our state coffers to pay people for the job that they are paid to do. But I can fully understand if we were to sell landed properties, cars, boats belonging to these, crime cartels, then we can use part of those funds because that is proceeds of illicit gain. But today we are taking from our national treasury money to pay people who should be apprehending criminal enterprises such as drug cartels. So I, as an individual, am registering my dissatisfaction and dismay that the government that should know better are violating the core principles of what we are as a people. And the dignity of the Gambian is robbed when people come to our national treasury, take monies to clap for themselves for doing what they ought to be doing. On the issue of the drug cartel and the Gambia, Gambia has become a soft target because of its geo-proximity to Europe. So you can bring stuff from Latin America, store it in Gambia, and do transshipment from the Gambia to Western Europe. Why is Gambia a soft target? The Gambia is a soft target because our security apparatus is not very sophisticated. And yes, Senegal have a sophisticated security apparatus, and yet still they are a target. This part of the world will continue to be a target because the inducement of the cartel by giving public officials, police, army, navy, immigration, drug law enforcement, intelligence, giving them money is so easy, and these people are so susceptible to it. So it makes Gambia and our region a soft spot. But I think in as much as it's a soft spot, we should have a zero tolerance to narco trafficking, and we should enforce and reinforce not our local drug policy, but our international stance towards narco trafficking, to show that when we apprehend you, we are going to do something. We have seen a container belonging to Shaib and Mahdi 3 years ago, nothing happened. We have seen people taken to court, nothing happened. The last major drug seizure, not much has happened. Well, then again, it says how serious of a country we are in tackling and combating narco trafficking. And on the issue of Golgimbub, it's rather unfortunate that the government don't believe that people are replaceable. Golgimbub is an individual, just like any other law enforcer. If he falls dead, God forbid, today, someone else will replace him. So therefore, why does this government believe without him, we cannot do something good in terms of law enforcement? I don't know Golgimbub personally, and I have nothing against the individual Golgimbub, but the man in uniform called Golgimbub, I have everything against because of the manner in which he handles law enforcement. He is not the owner of the law, but he is an enforcer of the law. And some of the things he has been alleged to have engaged in goes beyond the scope and mandate given to him by law. Therefore, That's not the type of law enforcer I want to wear my uniform and be paid by the taxpayer. Brutality has no place in the work we ought to be doing, and that is my problem with Gorgimbo.
Thank you, Mr. Nyang. The supplementary appropriation bill, sometimes I just ask myself, is it because of political, positioning, or our parliament don't understand what they are doing? Because these things now is kind of a habit for Gambians, because when we have our well-managed physical economy, I don't think it should not be politicized, because the consequence, and the effects sometimes can be very, very dire, and it will be. And you talked about the Banjul project, the hackerlands, and people were shouting and all those things. But I can even the governor of the central banks, vindicated your statement. Some of the things that they are doing, that's causing overcrowding in our bankings and many, many things. But these things are coming. We all know, the bills and all those things, so-called white elephant projects, that are started and they cannot finish them and all those things, pumping money. But my question is, what is wrong with our parliament? You can say about the executives and all, but this equal branch of our system, and they're just flowing this, going with the flow without no analysis, without no backgrounds. Maybe you can talk to people that can explain these things better for you. And this is so sad, really speaking. And I have to, project my voice on top of yours to register my dissatisfaction about this bill passing. And Gambia is a big pot of mess at the moment, and we don't know where our who will be our savior. Hopefully the youths of the Gambia, who are vastly affected. Mr. Njie, but the drug, has direct link to the blue zoning of crime. And I heard your emotional when you said things fall apart. People cannot sleep. People will work the whole day, but they are going to wake up the whole night to be monitoring their CCTVs, to be security security personnel in their homes, because you never know. People can come with drug, who are drunk or who are drugged, can come to attack you, assault you, and kill you. And when you go to police and they're telling you, bring this, or there's no car for people to go to police, ordinary people, there's nothing that comes out of it. So that's why we are talking about these drug issues. I only hope, and the mental health issues for the youths, there's a lot of mental health issues. I know a lot of mental health issues coming to me, the tankers, the Mobe in Sukuta. I have direct deals, dealing with them. The amount of mental health issues that we have registering within our youth is out of control. But still, nobody seems to fight. Is this a country of indifference? You always from our intellectual, from our people who don't want to have their hands dirty in politics, from our people who are sitting on the fence, just scanning which political parties are there, so that I don't offend these, and we keep quiet. And if there is anything that's happening, like burglaries, like civil war, even the rich people, the people that are on the fence, might be the people who are not even going to be safer, because they have everything and they are going to lose everything, Mr. Njie. Are we a country of indifference, in different branches, not only on drug issues, but many, many things that are happening? And we have only few people that are giants enough to come out and speak, the like of you, the Madis, the Ben Suarez, and all those things. And the catalogs of abuse that you have, I don't know how you sustain it, but kudos to you. Go ahead, Mr. Njie.
Well, before I get into that, I will first answer what you said first. What's wrong with our parliament? What's wrong with our parliament is what's wrong with me and you. Our parliament is a reflection of our society at large. The Gambian, like the American will say, we are not woke. We are not awoken. What we need is people who know better ought to be willing to dirty their hands in nation building. But oh no, we all love our comfort zones. Therefore, the people with willing bodies that are willing to give themselves up for public life are people without the requisite skill set and or toolkit to make a difference in the lives and livelihood of the Gambian. But the decisions on my taxes, my education, my healthcare is made by people who don't understand. But is it their fault? The answer is no. It's the fault of society, because we have turned choosing parliamentarians to a game of popularity contest. Is Mr. Janneh popular in Gunjur? Yes. So he's going to be our candidate. It should not be a game of popularity. It should be a game of finding out the people who can make a difference in the society we live and make a positive impact by making lives and livelihoods of the average Gambian better. That has failed us. On the issue of drugs and society, the problem of this country is not drugs. The problem of this country is demography. Gambia boasts of a youthful population. The population have high expectations, but there are no socio-economic opportunities available to them to make their dreams come true. Therefore, this has made many a Gambian kid to want to turn to the distant, desolate desert to find their way to Europe or by way of the Mediterranean. The ones that stay get into drug use and drug abuse. Therefore, destitution has become an order of the day. Youth unemployment is very high. So drugs is not coming to them. They are going out looking for drugs because most of them have given hope in living and they don't have not much to live for. And that's why our government must reprioritize the youth folk of this country, give them opportunities, create opportunities, and this is not difficult. We have over 30 to 40 kilometers of good shoreline with adequate marine resources. What's stopping the government of the Gambia from investing in fishing trawlers that can accommodate 10 to 15 youths? Buy 40 trawlers, 50 trawlers, put these youths out there, let them own these companies. We give them seed money. We have people who manage the trawlers for them, but it becomes a co-op, its own collectively. They go to sea, make money, we can transform life. What is stopping the government by putting kids together and open commercial farms where they can grow vegetables that will be shipped to England on a daily basis, and you give them a decent livelihood? But this is lacking because the government lacks foresight. This is lacking because our government is very ad hoc. They think of today and they don't have a broader picture of the horizon that we need to find ourselves. And Gambia will continue to be so unless and until we have people who dare to be different, to think out of the box and come up with solutions that are sustainable and will move the chances of the Gambian lot who are suffering. And bulk of the Gambian lot are suffering, especially young people without good education and access to good economic opportunities.
Wow! Once again, thank you so much, Njie, and greetings to all our listeners. And we are thanking you for once again joining us for this fantastic program on Gunjur Online. Please share the video so that the informations and the fantastic analysis that are done here can be reached to wider viewers. And this is really sad. Njie, you talk about the vegetable. I am in the UK here. The need for vegetable to supply hotels here is just unbelievable. And we tried to reach out, but most of the people who are doing vegetable gardenings to supply England are Indians in our country. Even in Senegal, most of them are Indians. And when you approach them, they say, no, that's what we are doing. This is a no-go area. So, if government is wise enough, these youth populations can be encouraged, can be given loans and facilities and all the necessary helps to grow vegetables, talking of, flowers, and England is just in the corner here. Even the Gambian population, the amount of Gambian vegetable, the bitter tomatoes and all those things that they require, we don't have enough supply to supply the Gambian community here. Moreover, other hotels and other restaurants that the Britain is now out of EU and they need all these things. So the government can do a lot. And I have to attest to you because I know something about that. But Nyang, we have to go to another topic, that is, I want you to give a strength, weakness, and threat analysis to our real estate agencies, the economic impact, the strength of the real estate economy into our economy, the weaknesses and the threat, and we will discuss all the other issues that comes with it, and because the issue of the real estate, is becoming a threat for our peace. The land issues, the myriad and pile of court issues that will never end. If things start, there's no land reform. And what is the problem? Can't we regulate the real estate situation? But things fall apart. When things fall apart, as you said, the middle cannot hold. Things fall apart in the Gambia. Go ahead, Mr. Nyang, and give us an analysis about this very important sector, but very, very chaotic so far.
Well, thanks once again. And land is going to be a ticking time bomb in this country. Why? The way land is managed and administered in Gambia is very bleak. It lacks accountability and it creates chaos. We don't have a land registry. We don't have, a functional court system that can give you a swift justice. People have been in courts fighting land disputes for years, and not much is coming out of it because the system lacks accountability. Real estate is a good measure of an economist performance. And we have seen Dubai. We have seen Florida, we have seen New York, we have seen San Francisco, and to a point we have seen England, especially South and Southeast London. If you understand what Brixton was some 40, 30 years ago and where it is today, you can understand what real estate is all about. You go to Handsworth, right in around the Birmingham area, you can see what real estate is all about. So basically, what we are talking about and what we need to understand is that real estate can make a difference in a community, it can make a difference in a country, but it needs guidelines, regulation, and codes. Today in Gambia, you can buy a property that's residential and you turn it into storage. You can buy a property that's residential and turn it into a nightclub. Why? Because we lack zoning laws and zoning codes. So therefore, there is a lot that needs to be done, but real estate is a critical sector, especially with a high presence of the diaspora out there. They want a piece of the Gambia. And in so wanting a piece of Gambia, they're investing heavily. And that's why the construction boom in this country has been sustained for a period of 10 to 15 years. Even when the economy is having a downturn, our construction sector is doing good. That's to show you that real estate is doing good, but it has been bankrolled by Gambians living outside of the Gambia. And now these people are suffering because they've been sold properties in a dubious manner, and some of them are trying to recover their monies. Why is all this happening? Government lacks the regulatory will to make sure the environment is sanitized, to make sure that the players are protected. I'll give you a simple case in point. We have real estate agencies who are selling properties by you making a deposit and paying for the rest over a period. In effect, these real estate companies are what you call depositor companies. A depositor company is just like a bank. I hold your money until you finish paying, I give you your property. But if I go bankrupt, you have no recourse to collect what you have given me to date. But in the banking environment, the central bank is the regulator and they have what you call a required reserve. A required reserve is a percentage of the deposits you receive that you should leave with the central bank. But the people with real estate shops are not regulated and they can take monies and tomorrow file bankruptcy, and that's the end of it. So government needs to step in and sanitize that environment sooner than later. If not, what I told you, land will be a very hot topic that will be a ticking time bomb for the country.
taking time bomb for the country. Mr. Njie, and the price also, there's no control. The price just sort of, all the time. You can have an area today, the next day you go, the price doubles and all those things. Who are their target? Because Gambians, in other than the diasporans, we so poor to the extent that, sometimes, but another problem that you mentioned, that's the deposito. They become a deposito company now. People are paying their money every month to the real estates, who are not regulated, and the level of dissatisfaction and the level of court issues, is just mind-boggling. But we have you are talking about the regulatory body. We have the Gambia Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. What is their role? But before you come there, Pa says, my own friend says, you hit the nail right on the head, Mr. Njie. Please continue cascading your knowledge to the wider Gambian. Your input on the economy and the wider topics are impressive. Go ahead, Mr. Njie.
Thank you, Pa. But yeah, first you raised two issues. One is the competition commission, and the other one is pricing. Gambia is an open free market. You have a willing buyer and a willing seller that comes together and make a transaction. So businesses have a right to live and a right to die. The decisions they make will impact their viability and success over time. So therefore, I think the market is being dictated by what the buyers are willing to pay. No company will price themselves out of the market by trying to sell something that the buyer is not willing to buy. Real estate in Gambia, I think, is very emotional. There is no logic that this area should sell for this. It's what the buyer wants to buy it for. And that, once the buyer buys at that price, that becomes the effective floor, meaning that becomes the minimum that the next transactor will ask for, the next person selling his property will ask for. And that's why the real estate Gambia, in the Gambia, the market is very buoyant and very volatile as it relates to price stability. The prices are nowhere, they're everywhere, because transactions, prior transactions determine future prices for that. Secondly, the Competition Commission lacked the legal scope to regulate real estate. I think it is high time we have a Real Estate Act, and this Real Estate Act will handle everything that's land related, how much foreigners can own land in the Gambia, how they can acquire it, how people can buy, and once they buy, what are the steps necessary to ensure title passes on, what can make a sale what can nullify a sale. We need all of this to make sure the right thing is done, but it needs government effort, government push, and government initiative.
Yes, government initiative, and unfortunately, these are not happening at the moment. And these are some of the things that, as you say, they are ticking time bombs, and we have to do something about it. We have about nearly 50 to 60 real estate or more in the Gambia, and you said the zoning is so important. But one wonders if these people are progressing, and they have a lot of impacts on our economy, employments, and all those things. But do you think they should do more in terms of the capital jail contribution to our economy? And because since our Gambia government, our economy is not digitalized, the system is very porous, Mr. Njie. Are they paying enough capital gain? And what is the issues around that? Tell us, please.
Well, you see, in life, nobody get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate, and the government is negotiating a raw deal because the government is not putting up systems and structures to make sure that tax compliance and revenue optimization are at its highest. So it's not the fault of the people who should pay, because they're just rational. The first rule of economics say people are self-expected and rational. Therefore, if there are loopholes I can use to minimize what I need to pay, I will do it as a human being. It's normal. So whose fault is it? The fault of the people who should enforce and collect, and that is government. And in 2021, the government of the Gambia must endeavor to digitize our economy. A digital economy will reduce the incidence of corruption. It will create efficiency. then the cost of collecting taxes will go down and compliance will go up. And the only way this can happen is leadership that is visionary, leadership that has foresight, and leadership that has competence. And I think today's Gambia lack all three.
Wow, today's Gambia lack all three. Mr. Njie, but we have housing deficit in that country, massive housing deficit. You know, the rural urban migration and the concentration of the Gambia within that area. And we what is the social security's role or the government's role to help us so that we can have low cost, have housings, maybe housing for teachers, housing for our nurses, and maybe we can have public-private, initiatives here and there so that we can reduce the burden because, and somebody was just said, the Gambian sovereignty being compromised by our poor legislations and land ownership and tenure system. He said, you cannot be sovereign if you don't even have a house where you can sleep in your own country. For example, people in Gunjur, in next 2 generations, the sons of Gunjur will not have a compound, will not have a place where they will build a house in Gunjur. They cannot afford it probably. They have to go out or they have to be condemned to renting and all those things. So, this housing deficit, massive housing deficit, and I can't remember whether we ever have low-cost housings in the Gambia. I don't know. Maybe I've been away for a while. So don't you think that's the way forward for us?
Well, there have been 2 low-cost housing initiatives in Gambia. One was the Bakote housing layout. That was a low-cost model done by the government by way of Social Security. And TAF at Yarambamba was a private initiative of a low-cost housing. But the problem with this country, we need to understand one thing. The Gambia government, if you don't understand your problem, you cannot come up with solutions. The government of the Gambia need to understand that 70% of the population of this country live in less than 29% of the land mass, meaning between Banjul to Sifo and Pirang. Just take that proximity, Banjul all the way to Gunjur, Sifo, and Pirang area. That's where 70% of the Gambians live. Therefore, it means we have a housing deficit. How can we fix that housing deficit? The government of the Gambia need to enter public-private partnerships. These public-private partnerships, government will come up with state-owned land as their equity into the partnership, and the developer will come with the cash to build. Then what's the next step? If we have proper civil service, we will want to compensate and remunerate our civil servants. And the best way to keep people is to give them, incentives. And the best incentive you can give someone is shelter. So our police officers, the reason they have become uniform beggars, their salary is less than the money they need for upkeep. So therefore, they'll be at checkpoints begging. Our nurses will take medication from the hospitals to sell because they want to supplement. Why is all this happening? They are lacking basic survival needs, i.e. housing, i.e. feeding, etc., etc. And that's why our policies should be sensitive to these needs and make sure that they're human needs. If you understand Karl Maslow said there is a hierarchy of needs. We have the social needs, and these social needs need to be met. If not, public corruption will be on the rise. And that's why in Gambia today, our policemen and women are doing things that are ungodly. Our nurses are doing things that are ungodly. And you take it to the highest office of this country, they're doing things that are ungodly and to the disadvantage of the greater good of society. The only way this will change is to change the social configuration of this country. And what I mean by social configuration, giving the Gambian his or her due, good housing, good access to drinking potable water, stable electricity, and opportunities, economic opportunities, and avail them to good health care. These are primary human needs, and the government of the Gambia hasn't provided the average Gambian with the primary needs for survival.
Thank you, Njie. I think you need to respond to Fakuru Silla. He said real estate in the Gambia should be decentralized. Why does everybody want to live in combos? If the average Gambian want to live outside Combo, the demand for land in Combo will go down. There is no time bomb. Landowners are selling property for one reason or other. Willing sellers, willing buyers. In fair enough, Mr. Njie, I was a teacher at Jara Bureng. Jara Bureng is not far from Gunjuri, in almost the same situation. But we went there as a teacher, as a qualified teacher, because I went there. I was with unqualified teachers there. I don't know how they manage it. They will be there the whole year. They cannot come to Combo because of the expense of their salaries, and there was nothing there, even a room, even a house to rent. I couldn't have it. I have to stay with the master, the headmasters, the colonial, headmaster's quarter. There is only one room, one sitting room and a small bedroom, and have to be, the whole year I have to be in the sitting room, of the headmaster. Me and my younger brother, the whole of the year, we don't even have a house. So as you say, no housings, no electricity, no whatever. How can people who are educated, no job for them there to go to an old city, for example, in those places? Breng is the capital of those places, but when you go to Nyawurulong, Ndongorba, and all those things, there's virtually nothing there. A graduate, somebody who finished even grade 12, I'm just responding to Fakuru, with no amenities, social amenities completely not there, to sit there and do what? No employment, no source of employment, and all those things. But you can take it from there. That's my personal experience. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I will tell Fakuru Silla that the reason why from 1980 to date we have had a high incidence of rural urban migration or rural urban drift is because the rural parts of Gambia lack amenities and opportunities, economic opportunities to be precise. So therefore, telling Gambians that we need to decentralize and move, what are you moving to? And that's why also at the same time, we have serious urban poverty. You go to places in Talinding, places in Ibo Town, places in other, hotspots. They're not fit for human habitation because people are cluttered together and they lack the minimum amenities to make life a decent, living standard. Good running water sometimes, portable toilets. So it's easier said, Mr. Silla. And I think it's not about moving to Boraba, where Madi Jobate is from. What is in Boraba for someone to make a living? Human beings have expectations, and these expectations have to be met or to be seen as being met. So hope brings them around, and when hope brings them around, they live a life of destitute in the urban area because they're living in squatters. So therefore, it's the government of the Gambia who need to understand that development need to be decentralized. And the way we can decentralize development is to give economic opportunities to companies. If a cement factory is willing to move from Kanifing Industrial all the way to Sabi in Basse, you tell them for the next 10 years, you're not going to pay taxes. So when that cement company goes there, they will bring resources, and those resources will force people to come around there, and that may make Basse to develop. And this is what Gambia need to do. We need to create, areas, development, free enterprise development areas. You take Basse, you take Bansang, you take Mansa Konko, and ask companies that are in the Greater Banjul, hey, you're paying government $25 million a year. If you're willing to relocate your services and activities to Mansa Konko, pay us nothing. And in return, we will give you the land to set up. Then you are decentralizing development. That's where it starts. But it needs foresight, it needs vision, and it needs competence. And once again, we lack all three in today's Gambia and today's administration, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true. I was doing a case study in one of my business modules, business management modules in Brazil. I did that case study there when they were growing. when Lula dos Santos came, and these are the very things that they do. Some of the deprived areas, they put the infrastructure there and encourage companies. Sometimes all their imports into the country is free for next 5 years. They don't do, so that they can encourage them to go. If you remember during the World Cup, the stadium that the English people went is almost in the Amazon jungle, and that's how developments are. Once you put that develop, people want to go to their homes. They want to stay there. They want to have opportunities. They want to be near their parents and have jobs and all those things. But if these infrastructures are not there, I was a teacher back in, before I traveled here. That's about nearly 20 years ago. And those infrastructures are there. All the young people are attracted into the capital, because they are educated. They want to have, white collar job, which is not there. They want to have decent housing. Even teachers, we don't have a place to be, and many other challenges. I can document a lot of experience of different teachers all over the place, and it's just not, I think, we as a government need to do well, need to do better, so that we can mitigate. We can do a low-cost housing for our civil servants wherever they are in the country, so that people can go back to their homes and all those things. I will be very happy to have a company that I can work for in Gunjur, when I don't have to travel to Banjul and all those things. So that's the. Anyway, Mr. Njie, the land banking also, before we go to our final topic, so that I can leave you, because I know you had a long day. The land banking also, because real estates, at least, will go and dish out the land, and give it to the best buyers, who just want to pay money. But the land banking one, that people hold on, they buy lands, hold on it, expecting to sell it might be next 10 years and all those things. That is a problem. It can be a positive and negative there, but how can we mitigate that, the land banking things and all those things?
Well, you see, government is an organism, and the organism has multiple tentacles. You see, the municipal and local government need to play a big role in slowing down land banking. How? Today, if you penalize someone who is holding onto a virgin land and don't want to do much in it, and when they come to pay property taxes, you evaluate them differently, you are making a difference. If development is happening in an area and there's a big empty space and no one is doing something, you punish the holder by putting taxes and other things. You will force them to really put the land to use. So I think it's all about creative policy prescriptions and creative policy formulation. And that is what we're lacking. I think people need to understand that public administration is all about having a vision, is all about addressing needs and identifying problems. And when you identify problems, you come up with solutions, and these solutions are the policy prescriptions. And that's what we need. And we need people who dare to think out of the box and do things differently. And that's what we lack in our country.
Yeah, thank you, Njie. That is very true. Once again, greetings to Buba. He says struggling with his internet, but in the Gambia. Anyway, Buba, sorry about that. Fakur say you should acknowledge that the rural electrification effort is a step in the right direction. If there was low-cost housing, teachers and all the civil servants will have been able to rent the house. That's what we are saying. We want that to be fast tracked, so that the housing issue, so that people in Sutukoba. One of my friends is watching here. He was in Sutukoba, as a teacher. That was back in early 90s. So we want them to have all the issues and all that. The example is in Cuba, and we can discuss those. Mr. Njie, finally we have. You ask, you say, what is the anger and where is the anger and the outrage of Gambians? This is concerning about the catastrophic environmental, degradation and destruction that is happening in my backyard. That's Gunjur, Sanyang, and Tujereng and Batokungu areas. But mostly Gunjur, Katon, Sanyang, and you went there. I saw those pictures, I've never get very, very emotional, seeing, because I know those places, Nyang. I played there, I hunt, rabbits and squirrels, we slide in the sand dunes there that were protecting, the floor of the sea. We saw different animals, the antelopes, and the grass, the all kind of animals in those places. The blossoming of flora and flora, in those places. That's our childhood heaven. To see that place so destroyed, it's just beyond belief. And I was happy that you went there, and being so creative as you are to portray the damage of that environment, and I am saddened really, both for our environment and then the destruction of our bonga, the fish, the charlos, and all those things, we can get our proteins here. And now we are getting our proteins from chicken legs, from Holland, chicken legs from all over the place, with all the injected things in them to fattening them, the antibiotics and many, many things, because we cannot. But some people are just dumping fish and throwing it. Why do you think those fish are worse now in that amount, in that magnitude, to our coastline and the destruction of our environment? And you say the indifference. We are a nation of indifference, led by unscrupulous and unconscionable people. Our condition is likely not to change for the better because we love the pimp and prostitute relationship. Mr. Njie, can you dilate?
Well, I'll start with saying that what's happening to the Gambian environment is criminal. What's happening to the Gambian environment is unfortunate. What's happening to the Gambian environment is disheartening. In any other country, the people who have been entrusted with power to manage some of these resources would have been taken to court for neglect of duty and dereliction of duty. The Gambian environment, be it the sea, the land, the forests, have been decimated because of the greed of few people and the inducement by, the investors who really see an opportunity in our misery. Therefore, who is to be blamed, the investor or our officials? I will say the Gambian.
The Gambian,
because
yes.
once we deplete our resources, the investors will move on. No love lost. It was all about making money. But where will me and you go once our country becomes a shithole? Sorry for my language. I get emotional when I talk about the environment. So therefore, it's our responsibility to call out the perpetrators who are not doing right to country, i.e. the Minister of Fisheries. Without no reservation or hesitation, I say the Minister of Fisheries must be held to book. The Director of Geology or whatever, Department of Geology, Forestry, Fisheries. Why is it that you people don't care about what the greater good own? Why is it that you are indifferent to the destruction of a very beautiful country owned by people who are poor? But our condition is so because the Gambian love the pimp and the prostitute relationship. The prostitute works for the pimp and brings the money he makes for the pimp, even though he's the one who slept with the clients. That's how the Gambian has reduced himself. And up until we understand that the public servants work for us, we will then start holding them accountable. But the likes of Nyang oftentimes are scrutinized for calling a spade a spade. And we must not scrutinize Nyang. We must scrutinize the people who are taking us for a ride. And those are the public officials we entrust with power.
Yes, definitely. Fakuru says again, there is NEA and there is Geology Unit. These are technical arm of government. If the experts there let something happen, it must be right. Wow. Yeah, thank you, Fakuru. Anyway, sometimes, that's not the case. Government has to be accountable. We don't have to just say, whatever they said is right. Sometimes human beings are not perfect. They get things right. They got things wrong. But no expert can convince me because they had a limit. a limit of amount of, the holes, the digging that they will do. But no, they went way beyond that, and palm trees are falling down. The water's been absorbed from those, well holes, and the women gardens are now dying because the water cannot stick. The topsoil is gone and all those things, and they are still digging it. And I was in Gunjur. I am born and bred in Gunjur. I only went to capital when I passed my common entrance. As I said, from Carton Coast to Sanyang Coast, that's where we play. That's where we did and that's where we do our huntings. That's where we slide and all those things. Common sense, basic common sense. You don't need to be an expert to tell you that is wrong, really, what is happening there. I always, Fakuru will go to Gunjur, and have a stroll like Nyang does in his Saturday walk, and see the amount of destructions that is happening there. Probably, even if you don't appreciate the historical aspect of it, like when I was young, I saw it when I was young. We have the bankalways where we will swim, so those things, and the cover, the forest cover, the sand dunes that protects us, the places where the turtles, comes and lay their eggs are all destroyed, so no expert at all will convince me that that is right for Gunjur, that is right for those places, those where the homes of fauna and flora, the birds, the monkeys, and different kind of foxes, that we used to hunt, and I saw that, so please, Fakuru, but yes, you said, Mr., the Minister of Fisheries is an enemy to our collective good, and we need to demand his resignation and prosecution for abdication of his solemn out and responsibility to the Gambian polity. Mr. President, this picture is a gross negligence of his duty of care to our marine resources. Your silence is consent on this environmental catastrophe of epic proposal. Your government doesn't respect our plight as a poor and struggling nation due to your negligence, your indifference, and continued pillage. The Banjul, the Tambi wetland, I was at Muslim high school. We are just at the corridor of the mangroves, the greenery, and all those things. It was a beauty when everything is just calm and serene. And now it's tempering. So from Gunjur to Banjul, and Banjul is among the 10 places in the world that are likely going to be consumed, by sea, just not very, very soon, probably, if all the precautions are not taken. And these things are happening, Mr. Njie. But the cost to the ordinary people, the expense is the expense of the expensiveness of our country. Somebody was telling me now, he went to Gambia holiday and said foods are more expensive in the Gambia today than in UK. Fish and everything. So this is what we are talking about. Go ahead, Mr. Njie, and we're going to wrap up and give you ample time so that you can have a rest just from work. Go ahead.
Yes, you're right. A lot has happened that is unfortunate, and more will happen because generally Gambians, like I said, they're indifferent. Everyone is folding their arms, sitting and watching, whilst our country is being decimated. What are we, the average Gambian citizen, doing to tell our government, you are plundering our resources? Not much. Do we care? The answer is no. Do we even understand the ramification of what's happening? More than likely, not. So therefore, what I am seeing is troubling because we have a population that is indifferent to their own good. So the more we sit down and watch, the more emboldened our public officials will get to do whatever they want. And that's where the country finds itself today.
Yes, Njie, finally, the tourist season, and the COVID, the rampant of this, the Delta variant and Delta Plus variants is creating havoc in our places. Our old people are dying in droves, Gunjur is hugely affected. Every other day, very important people, are dying and all those things, Nobody is talking about it. There is a public rampage. Campaigns are going. The government don't want to talk about anything else. What a country we have. no issue at all about the COVID and all those things, when people are dying. And these are all going to affect our tourism come next year. As an economic, give us this analysis, just, draw your, what you think about the COVID and what is happening there and the tourism, the impact that we have. And that's going to be, and agriculture so far is performing, the rainfall is so unpredictable and not good at the moment. What should be your focus as an economist, and we will wrap it from there.
Well, right now, the Gambia is facing trying times. The tax collection of this country is dwindling because economic activity has shrunk due to the global meltdown, the global crisis. Gambia is not insulated from the global economy, and what happens in the global economy to a large extent affects Gambia. One, freight cost from China to Gambia has significantly gone up due to COVID, and this will translate into pricing in Gambia of basic goods, where China is our main supermarket. That's number one. Number two, our receipts, collectibles from exports and other things have dwindled, yet still our borrowing is going up. That is shameful. So therefore, the Gambian economy is not sitting on strong macro fundamentals, and the government should have understand that we are not on good macro fundamental situation as is, and therefore our economy must be very frugal and must be very conservative as it relates to expenditure. But unfortunately, we are spending more now than ever before, and that is reckless and irresponsible fiscal management. But unfortunately, our economic policy is driven by political rationale, not economic rationale. And that's why future generations of Gambians are going to suffer and suffer significantly. Imagine BP paid us a lot of money for exploration. Why should the government of the Gambia just want to spend that money? Oil is a depletable resource owned by Gambians and future Gambians yet unborn. Therefore, the proceeds of oil today must not all be eaten. We must leave some for the next generation. And that's why we need to invest in a sovereign wealth fund, and the sovereign wealth fund will manage the proceeds of this. But you cannot make money out of exploration and put it on the budget for expenditures. That is reckless irresponsibility. And who cares that we are very reckless in the way we spend money?
Thank you so much, Mr. Njie. And I, if you want to give us your final, summation or analysis of some of the things that you want Gambian, the advice, and we will close it from there, until when we have you again. Go ahead and give us your final, thought about, Gambia generally.
Well, thanks for having me. And I will always say one thing, and I will say it with an amplified voice. We cannot expect to have a new Gambia without having a new Gambian. Our endeavor is to build a new Gambian, and a new Gambian is premised on a Gambia or a Gambian that has core ideals of nationalism. We must think first as a Gambian before anything. Then once we think we are Gambians, the next thing we need to ask ourselves, what is a Gambian, or what should a Gambian be like? An American, we know what an American is. People who love life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's their core national ideal. We as a people, we're yet to have core national ideals ingrained in who we are and where we want to go and where we want to take our country. So without that, anything we attempt to do is going to fail woefully, because we don't have a sense of purpose, we don't have a sense of direction, and we don't have a unity of purpose collectively as Gambian. So I will endeavor that through our school system, through our constitution, through our social configuration, we start building a Gambian that thinks about the country before we think about these mundane issues that are so primitive, called tribe, class, etc., etc. On that note, a great thank you, and God bless the Gambia, and God bless all her diverse peoples. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Njie. As I will conclude by saying, as I said, societies are founded on hero worship. The Quran, the Bible is all about heroes and heroes that are giving their example, their faults, here and there. Based on that, the life of Mr. P. Njie serve as an anchor to our diverse Gambia. The relationship between him and Jawara, with even their political differences, is big moral lesson for us. These politicians, let them not divide us into tribes. We are Gambia and Gambia first. When I was looking at Kagbo and Watara's, video, and I get annoyed, because these are people who collide and divided people who kill each other. Now they are friends now. Once again, let's not allow to be divided into tribes, into politics, into anything else, and leave those leaders to go ahead. One example is our country. We were divided. Yeah, Jammeh divided us. Now he's a bedfellow to Barrow, and those who are fighting are left in a vacuum now. So once again, thank you all, our viewers all over the world, for dignifying us with your presence today. And your comments, thank you also. And once again, thanks to our boss, Lamin Jammeh, and our technician, Abubakari from America. Thank you all once again. Allah Baraka and Juma Mubarak to all of you.